It's possible to be a genius and still do stupid things. Things like forget to save your money or leave your priceless invention out where someone else can steal it. Or even do everything right, but forget to take out a patent. That includes a guy who made it possible for you to watch this video, Philo Farnsworth. Ever heard of him? Well, that's exactly our point.
Sir, how old were you when you invented television, or the first television machine as we know it today, first television system?
I was 14.
The name may not come to mind when you turn on your TV, but Philo Farnsworth is at least partially responsible for the fact that you're watching TV at all. Also, nice "I was 14" flex there, Philo. Like he said, Farm Boy Farnsworth was a high school student when he came up with the idea for the television, and he even managed to patent the idea. Sounds like a recipe for lifelong wealth and fame, right? It was certainly headed that way, but his monumental lead was followed by a series of devastating downturns. Farnsworth's company went bankrupt in 1970, and he died of pneumonia the following year. So, how does a peak thinker who paved the way for our modern screen-based society end up penniless? Do the words corporate greed ring a bell? For 10 years, RCA, one of the biggest names in the television set industry, paid a licensing fee to use Farnsworth's patent to produce televisions. The deal ran out just as World War II was ending. Then the Radio and Television Manufacturers Association bestowed the label Father of Television on RCA's David Sarnoff, leaving Farnsworth in the dust and the dustbin of history. After developing what would become one of the most important inventions in the history of humankind, Farnsworth found himself in the mid-20th century without the riches he deserved. His hard-luck life was captured in Aaron Sorkin's 2007 Broadway play, The Farnsworth Invention, but the show closed due to a stagehand strike, yet another blow to the legacy of this underappreciated inventor. Hero of the internet, foil to his arch-nemesis Thomas Edison, his name is now a byword for innovation and energy efficiency. But Croatian immigrant Nikola Tesla never came close to joining the billionaires club like Elon Musk, whose company liberated Tesla's name. Tesla's theories about the nature of electricity and the possibility of free access to energy worldwide may sound the opposite of profitable. Any 21st century CEO would certainly say so. But he imagined a world driven by electrical power, and his electrical inventions changed the course of history. Tesla started out working for Thomas Edison, the guy everybody thinks invented the light bulb. Spoiler, he didn't, but that's for another video. Anyway, when the two inventors came to a major clash of ideas, Tesla went off to found the Tesla Electric Light Company and sold his patents to Westinghouse. Even though he started his own company, Tesla was far less commercially driven than the famously enterprising Edison. So when the two ended up in direct competition for the growing electricity market, Edison prevailed by determination and sheer bravado. As for Tesla, he grew increasingly eccentric and reclusive.
He was often seen as sort of the mad scientist who was out of control and would destroy the world.
Tesla drew unwanted attention from the FBI and even Russia thanks to his plans for a particle beam weapon called Teleforce. The death ray, as it became known, was never built or tested, and its feasibility is still debated today. Tesla died poor and alone after coronary thrombosis at age 86, but his legacy and the mysterious nature of his grand discoveries have become the stuff of legends in modern times. In the mid-20th century, Walter Shaw dreamed up the concept of call forwarding. He also invented the voice-activated speakerphone, which led to things like this happening.
Oh, Greg, your grandpa.
Yeah, okay, you're on speakerphone, Tom.
And touchtone dialing, which, if you were born after about 1986 and are unfamiliar, replaced rotary dialing, which, well, here's a handy-dandy refresher.
When dialing, notice that I brought my finger around until it firmly touched the finger stop.
Obviously, that took forever and would have made all those annoying phone menus in search of a live human being on the other end of the line impossible. Shaw's discoveries happened when he was working for Bell Laboratories, but his promising career came to an unceremonious end when he quit that job. Shaw believed he'd be able to take his innovations elsewhere thanks to a pending antitrust lawsuit intended to break up the phone monopoly, but AT&T won the suit and maintained its control over the industry. As a result, Shaw was unable to implement his ideas for his own profit. In a dark twist, Shaw ended up using his telecommunication skills and creativity to help the mafia hide its bookmaking activities by blocking police wiretaps. Unfortunately, word got around, and his extra-legal activities made him too big a risk for legit employers. Shaw died in poverty in 1996.
Antonio Meucci invented the telephone and he got robbed. Everybody knows that.
Nobody really knows that, but there's some truth to that claim. You see, before Alexander Graham Bell got the idea for a wire-based communication system, Antonio Meucci was hard at work on the same thing. The Italian inventor was working at a theater in 1834 when he decided to build a device that allowed the control room and the stage to communicate with one another.
We need a hearing pipe here. What? To talk, yes. It's the name of a device, something I invented.
Years later, while living in Cuba, Meucci developed a so-called talking telegraph that brought voice to the world of telecommunications. After moving to Staten Island in 1815, Meucci created a wire system throughout his home to speak remotely with his wife, who was confined due to illness. This became the electromagnetic voice transmission device we all know today as the telephone.
I'm here, hello, hello, hello. My wife's in the other room and she's like, hello, hello, hello.
Meucci developed multiple models, all of which were stored in the lab where he worked, until they all went mysteriously missing. Not coincidentally, one of his co-workers was Alexander Graham Bell, who you may know as the man credited with inventing the telephone. Meucci ended up so heavily in debt that he couldn't even afford the $10 fee to renew his patent.
I invented that. That was my machine. This is bull.
He eventually sued Bell in a case that went to the US Supreme Court, but died in 1889 before it was heard. Though he died in poverty, Meucci was finally recognized in a 2002 resolution by the US House of Representatives that acknowledged him as the true inventor of the telephone. Anytime you drop a needle on a record, you're working with a version of Marie Killick's invention. Without Killick, scratching, mixing, and DJing would be a whole different thing. She came up with a stylus that brought more clarity to sound produced by the gramophone, the predecessor to the modern record player. At first, she made a lot of money off her idea, but it didn't last. Eventually, an electronics manufacturing company called Pi Radio infringed on her copyright and cut into her sales, kicking off a 1953 lawsuit that became a landmark case in England. If the decision went her way, Killick was set to rake in millions, but litigation dragged on and on. Before the decision came down, Killick was driven into bankruptcy, which prevented her from being awarded compensation. Instead, she died homeless and impoverished in 1964. Wilhelm Röntgen wasn't an inventor in the traditional sense of the word, but the German physicist's studies forever altered how we see the world, our interior world. It was Röntgen's work with cathode ray tubes and charged gases that led to what he called Röntgenograms, the earliest X-ray images of inanimate objects. His first human subject was his wife's hand. Röntgen called these pictures X-rays because of their unknown nature, and the name stuck. Röntgen's invention garnered accolades from the academic and scientific worlds, but he didn't let it go to his head. He stayed humble, preferred to tinker with his contraptions in solitude, and enjoyed taking friends on mountain adventures at his summer home in the Bavarian Alps. Though the man who pioneered the science behind how X-rays work was showered with money and appreciation during his lifetime, he didn't die rich. In 1901, he was awarded the Nobel Prize in Physics, an achievement most would consider the pinnacle of their lifetime, but Röntgen gave away the prize money. He developed intestinal cancer and died in poverty in 1923, having changed the world permanently and for the better. The story of the Mississippi River would be incomplete without the steamboat, and the steamboat may never have happened without John Fitch. He dreamed up an engine that utilized steam to propel waterborne vessels, and although figures like Robert Fulton had greater success, Fitch's was the first of its kind in the world. From initial idea to finished plans, it took only 6 months for Fitch to bring his steam engine to the American Philosophical Society, the predecessor to the US Patent Office. Figures like George Washington and Benjamin Franklin declined to invest in steamboating business, so Fitch pulled himself up by his bootstraps, built his dream ship, and began ferrying passengers between Pennsylvania and New Jersey. Unfortunately, he was unable to attract enough business to stay afloat. No pun intended. Okay, fine, the pun was intended. And it was Fulton whose steamboats changed the world. Fitch's failed enterprise left him penniless. He began to drink excessively and eventually died by suicide in 1798 at the age of 55. Despite his lack of financial success, his achievements are honored in the John Fitch Steamboat Museum in Warminster, Pennsylvania, where Fitch made his dream come to life. When self-taught chemist Charles Goodyear came up with the idea for the process of vulcanizing rubber, which made it tough enough to resist wear and tear, he put Naugatuck, Connecticut on the map. The rubber industry flourished there and led to the founding of the United States Rubber Company, now Uniroyal, one of the first stocks traded on the Dow Jones. US Rubber developed Keds, the first rubber-soled sneaker and the original ancestor of sneakerheads' favorite footwear. So stop ripping on Keds, they're classic. Goodyear's invention made a huge impact on the lives of people around the globe, but he didn't care about making money. He preferred to continue with his work, inventing things that helped humanity rather than making him rich. He was one of the world's most celebrated innovators, but Goodyear's life came to a sad end when in 1860 he learned his daughter lay dying in New York. Unable to get to her before she passed, he collapsed from shock and died just a few days later at the age of 59. Despite literally putting the world on wheels with an invention that would long outlive him, Goodyear died $200,000 in debt. Adjusted for inflation, that would be almost $8 million worth of unpaid bills today.